Like, I'm just tired. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I work with a bunch of children. Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing a top 10. Topic of the top 10, CM Punk's top 10 AEW matches. And the reason for this is there was just an interview that came out earlier this week, at the time I'm recording this, where CM Punk was asked about people he may have wanted to face in AEW that he didn't get a chance to, or stories he wanted to tell that he didn't get a chance to. Well, he didn't go with that. He kind of said, there are people I wasted matches on. So I wanted to spin that and turn that to the positive. And this isn't necessarily from Punk's mind, because I guarantee there are some people on this list that I know for a fact that CM Punk is not a fan of. So he may not have the same list that I do, or if he looks at it objectively, he may look at this and think I'm spot on here. With that being said, let's jump right into it. There's only roughly 30 matches, so very few of these would make the top 10 matches of Punk's overall career, but these are my 10 favorites from his roughly 2-year run in AEW. Starting off at number 10, one that I don't think he would enjoy, CM Punk versus Hangman Adam Page from Double or Nothing 2022. And let's talk about the elephant here. I don't want to bring up the controversies with each one, but it's hard not to on some of these. This is obviously the one that comes with the empty-headed dumb fuck saying and them not being on the same page. Hangman Adam Page thinking that CM Punk got his friend Colt Cabana fired, and you know, the whole thing leads to a whole different story. Take that away and put this match in a bubble. If you think of the match itself, I thought this was a very good match. I'm a person that's a fan of Hangman Adam Page, and I know he has his detractors. I'm a fan of CM Punk as well. Hell, if you look back at my content, there's probably more videos about CM Punk than almost anybody. Probably the next closest people would be Raven or Bret Hart, or maybe The Undertaker. I can't think of anybody else that I've talked about more, and it's mostly because he's a lightning rod. But I digress. I really enjoyed this match. This is the kind of match that I was hoping for when Punk came to AEW. Him versus a younger guy that needed to build his name, that needed that rub, that needed to be in there with a CM Punk. I enjoyed this match. I don't think either of the two wrestlers enjoy it, and I don't think it's on either one of their favorites of all time just because of issues they had, but I liked it. Now coming from that, our number 9, a match that I guarantee he liked a lot better. The 6-man trios match, the House of Black, Aleister Black, Buddy Matthews, and Brody King going up against CMFTR, CM Punk and his friends FTR. This is from Collision from August 12th of 2023, kind of near the end of CM Punk's run in AEW. This was just a fun match, and this was when CM Punk had Collision and it was going to be his show. You could see some of the styling of that, and if we go back and we look at that early Collisions, the ones that CM Punk had control over, I liked the direction. I liked what he was doing. It was giving him more Ring of Honor in the early 2000s vibe. It had that sports-based feel to it, and some of the people he was pushing, guys like the House of Black, guys like Ricky Starks, guys like Jay White, and obviously his friends FTR, I thought really made that show well. I just liked this match. I thought it was a fun match. Just 6 great wrestlers putting on a great match. I rather enjoyed it. Now sticking with FTR, our number 8, CM Punk versus Dax Harwood from Dynamite from March 23rd of 2022. Basically a little over a year before this. I kind of feel bad that Dax is the guy that they put in singles matches all the time from FTR, and almost always he loses them. I feel like he was okay with losing here. I mean, obviously, these guys are good friends. I just mentioned it. I really enjoyed it, and I think when you get to see Dax or Cash in a solo setting, you get to see just how good they are individually as wrestlers, as well as being one of the top tag teams in all of wrestling. I rather enjoyed this. This was really fun. That's why it's on my list. Going from that, our number 7, CM Punk versus Jon Moxley from All Out 2022. I know, this is the night of Brawl Out. Again, I don't want to touch the controversies too much. We all know what they are, so let's just mull over that. This is another match I don't think Punk liked as much, and I know that Moxley probably didn't like it as much either. There seemed to be a clash of styles and a clash of thinking in this, but I thought it was a really good match. I actually really enjoyed this. I wish it didn't lead to what it led to later on, and that's unfortunate because people forget about how good of a match this actually was. I rather enjoyed it. I mean, these are two guys I love watching wrestle. It wasn't either one's best match, but it was definitely a match that I enjoyed. Now, going from that, our number 6, CM Punk's very first match in AEW, CM Punk vs. Darby Allin from All Out 2021, a year earlier than the match we just spoke about. I enjoyed this, and again, like I said with Hangman, this was the kind of match I wanted to see. I wanted to see CM Punk with the newer crop of wrestlers, the guys he never faced before. The Darby Allins, the Hangman Pages, the Jack Perry's I wish he could have wrestled, the Ricky Starkses, the guys of that nature, of that class, and him elevating them to a new level. Darby Allin, much like we talked about with FTR, is a guy he kind of got tied to for a long while in his career. And you could see a lot of similarities between Darby and Punk. Both are straight edge, both kind of have that outsider look, that somewhat alternative look to them. Both have done it their way, both have an insane following. I really love this match. I thought it was a perfect first match for him. That's why it's on my list. Now, coming from that, our number 5, another match with a guy I wanted to see him against, and probably my favorite feud of CM Punk's in AEW, and my favorite AEW feud overall up until this point, CM Punk versus MJF from Dynamite from February 2nd, 2022. There was some magic that happened anytime these two got in a ring together, whether that was cutting a promo against each other, whether that was wrestling each other. These two just brought the best out of each other. And I don't know if it's because maybe Punk's seen a little bit of himself in MJF and the smart-ass attitude, the guy that's considered the best talker in wrestling at some point. They both were at different times. I really love this feud, and I really love this match. This is kind of overlooked by another match they had, but this one was just as enjoyable. I really enjoyed this, hence why it's on my list. We'll go from that on number 4. We're going to get some repeat characters here, some repeat offenders. FTR and MJF, that's a lot of initials, versus CM Punk, Darby Allin, and Sting! This is from the December 22nd, 2021 episode of Dynamite. I mean, come on, how can you not have fun with this? You have CM Punk, Sting, and Darby Allin, basically 3 generations of awesomeness, 3 generations of guys that everybody rooted for, going up against FTR and MJF, guys that everybody liked to boo. This was just an awesome match. It was fun. CM Punk painted his face to look like Sting. I mean, this was just a great match. I really enjoyed this. This felt like the most fun CM Punk had in the match. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure some of the matches that we talked about here he had fun with, but this felt like the more just outright enjoyable match for him. He got to work with a legend, he got to work with an up-and-comer, he got to work with friends, he got to work with a rival. Just a great match. I really enjoyed this. I'll go from that on number 3. We talked about his first match in AEW. Let's talk about his last match in AEW. CM Punk versus Samoa Joe from All In 2023. Again, we all know the controversies. We know what happened backstage. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about 2 all-time rivals. One of the best rivalries, in my opinion, in the history of wrestling, and going out there and probably giving their last chapter of that rivalry, unless for whatever reason Samoa Joe decides to go back to WWE. I don't see these guys ever wrestling again, which is really a shame, because anytime they stepped in the ring together, they had magic with each other. This was a match 20 years in the making, guys that I think are still friends. You never know with the way wrestling is. But yeah, this was just another fun match, separate from what happened later in the day, much like the Moxley match we talked about earlier. People kind of forget this match, even though I think it was awesome. It's one of my favorite matches of that show. I really enjoyed this. That's why it's up here on my list. We'll go from that on number 2. CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston from Full Gear 2021. This is another guy where I don't know where the truth ends and the work begins, but there's obviously been some issue with Punk and Kingston at some point, whether they worked that out or just found a way to work with each other. They really added it into their feud here, and I thought this was an awesome match. I really love these two guys. Again, like I say with a lot of these people, this felt right and this felt special. It felt like Eddie Kingston was finally stepping up to the plate and getting into that upper echelon. I really loved this, especially for the promos they had against each other, which I know doesn't count towards the match, but it was absolutely amazing. That's why it's so high on my list. Now, before we get to our number one, we do a thing here called the best of the rest. Basically, this was things that were considered for the list but didn't quite make it. First up, FTR versus CM Punk and Jon Moxley from the February 9th, 2022 edition of Dynamite. This again is another match that I don't think a lot of people think of, but it was really fun. I think any time that CM Punk and FTR got in the ring together, whether it be as teammates or opponents, they always wanted to show that they were the best in the world. Jon Moxley, again, a guy who's very polarizing, much like CM Punk. He has his lovers, he has his haters. I actually thought he worked really well with CM Punk here, and I actually think their feud, despite the issues, was better than it's given credit for. And it's kind of overshadowed because it happened at a time that other stuff happened. But this was a really fun match, kind of an overlooked match, one I recommend going back and watching. Now, last but not least on the best of the rest, CM Punk versus Satoshi Kojima from Forbidden Door 2023. There were a lot of people that when this match was made, they were upset that Punk didn't get one of the bigger name guys like Naito or Okada or Tanahashi. But for me, this kind of fit, because you have CM Punk, who's a legend, Kojima, who's a legend, which if you're not familiar with Kojima and you've only seen him in the last decade or so, you don't realize how important he was to New Japan, especially in the turn of the century, early 2000s. One of the most legendary wrestlers there is in the company. This was just a fun match between two legends, a match I never thought I was going to see. We got it. It was awesome. Now, before I get to number one, if you think I put something too high, something too low, left a match off the list altogether, let me know down here in the comments. While you're there, smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. All that really does help. And finally, our number one CM Punk match in AEW. You had to know this was coming. CM Punk versus MJF in a dog collar match from Revolution 2022. For me, not only is this their best match, this is probably on the very short list of best matches in AEW, period. And best matches of this decade. I really, really love this match. There's something about dog collar matches that I really enjoy, whether it be Piper and Valentine, Cody and Brody Lee, Punk and MJF here, Punk and Raven earlier on in Punk's career, Raven and Stevie Richards versus the Pitbulls. There's something about that stipulation that I just enjoy. And I know it can be hokey at times, and I know it can be a little bit silly at times, but for me, I think some of the best matches happen with that stipulation. When the wrestlers understand that they have to work a little bit differently and they have to use that to their advantage, especially with two guys that are as intelligent as CM Punk and MJF are in the ring. I thought this was an absolutely, absolutely amazing match. I really love this match. It's one of my favorites that AEW's ever put on. It's one of my favorites of both of these guys' careers. That's why it's our number one. Now again, if you think I put something too high, too low, left it off, let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite match of CM Punk's in AEW was. If you want to go negative, let me know what you think some of the people he regrets wrestling were. I know there's probably a couple on this list. But let me know down there in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another Top 10.